If you've ever tried to think positive, to stay high vibe, to do all the manifestation things and still felt anxious, heavy, frustrated, or like you somehow are failing at spirituality, today's guest is going to feel like permission, truth, and a complete breath of fresh air. But first, before we really get into that, Happy New Year to you. Oh my goodness, 2026, here we are. How was your New Year? Did you celebrate in all the ways that bring you fulfillment and joy? Because I sure hope so. I know mine was very low key, like it typically is, having my mom over at the house and just enjoying the company and conversation, watching the ball drop. It was very peaceful, and that is my favorite way to celebrate New Year's. So, anyway, I am so happy that you're here. We are starting another year of the Energy Fix podcast, and we're going to be starting it out in just the right way. And that is with a brand new series. I'm calling this series the Health Book Series. I'm going to have multiple guests on that are going to be talking about various topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, how to get everything back in alignment and to move forward with more courage, more inner power, more strength, and to talk about the books that they have written around those topics. So this is going to be a really fun series, just highlighting some amazing authors and the books that they are bringing, that they're birthing out into the world. Now, before we dive in, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who stopped by my booth at the jam-packed Hershey Gem Jewelry and Rock Show this past Sunday. Oh my goodness, it was so good to see you all. I was honestly, though, a little bummed that I couldn't really come out from behind the booth. One of my favorite things to do is just to connect with you on that personal level, to maybe give you a little pat on the back, to give you a hug, to connect more intimately. But unfortunately, I was locked down back behind that booth. I could not get out. And so that bummed me out. But regardless, it was amazing to see you. And to my local friends who I haven't seen since before the holidays, you know who you are. I left that day feeling tired and grateful and all kinds of emotions, but in the best ways. It was such an awesome day. All right. I do have some updates for you, but I'm going to wait a little bit. Just stay tuned here throughout the interview. I will bring some updates a little bit later on. Now, let's get into today's conversation. My guest today is David Strickel. He is a channeler of source consciousness and creator of the Taya Practice. He's for people who are done with surface level manifestation and are just sick and tired of being told to avoid low vibration at all costs. Instead, David teaches how to work with contrast and low vibe states as fuel for real lasting transformation instead of feeling like you can never actually be in those real life human emotions. In our conversation, we get into why positive thinking only can actually backfire and how low vibration states can catalyze growth. We talk about how judgment keeps you stuck and why appreciation can be such a beautiful exit strategy without forcing gratitude. And we also step into why chasing alignment can become its own trap and how embracing polarity creates this sense of freedom and what manifestation looks like when it's grounded in vibration and surrender instead of pressure. If you're sensitive, if you are a neurodivergent brain, if you easily get overwhelmed, if you're exhausted by just trying to raise your vibe, this advice is going to be so valuable for you. Here is my conversation with David Strickel. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Energy Fix podcast, David. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
as we really dive into, I think personally, a hot topic. We're going to be talking a lot about manifestation mindset, some of the trigger words, some of the buzzwords, some of the words, the concepts that really get your goat fired up. We're going to be talking all about that stuff today. And to kick it off, let's talk about words. Is there a word or a phrase that you're really embodying and connecting to right now in 2025?
Well, my favorite word always, so it's still here in 2025, is appreciation. And by appreciation, I mean being able to observe any aspect of life from what I call the source perspective of non judgment. And the very best word in the English language for this is appreciation. And I teach appreciation of all things. So obviously that's my favorite word. And we can really delve deep into appreciation of all things. I'll let you decide how deep you want to go into all that. But I, when you say appreciation, very often people rush to preference. Well, here's a list of things that I don't appreciate and that you're not allowed to appreciate. But appreciation does not necessarily mean preference. It really means deep understanding. You can have an appreciation for someone or something or even a situation, meaning a deeper understanding to the point where you're no longer fearing or judging around it, because usually we fear and judge things that we don't really understand. So whenever there's something that is triggering, I always want to explore that deeper and try to understand it deeper so that there is no trigger, there's no fear, there's no judgment, even if it's not a preference.
Mm. And so when it comes to that word appreciation, I would love to know maybe how or any practices or rituals or thought processes that you use to shift into a deeper heart appreciation and not just this surface level concept that so many of us have been taught to embrace and embody.
Well, the practice that we teach is a daily practice of really the exploration of how creation occurs, manifestation, right? But there's so much more to it than just think about something and it shows up. It's obviously far more complex than that. The universe is not designed for us just sit and dream of something and have it pop up in front of us. Creation just doesn't work that way. So, in all of this exploration of how we quote unquote manifest anything, whether it's wanted or not, it really is through energetic focus. We are creating with our consciousness. So if we're creating with our consciousness and we are looking upon something in appreciation, we are not necessarily in that moment creating that thing. Creation doesn't happen that rapidly, but we are seeing it very clearly instead of bothering to judge it. And what happens is it detunes its power over us. Meaning, if we are fearful about a topic and we fixate on the topic all the time, or it's being shown to us in social media or from the news all the time, and we really sort of go down that wormhole of fear and judgment around that topic, we're fueling it, and we're going to bring some version of that into our lives. And not only are we doing that independently, as a collective consciousness, we're fueling these things that we don't want. So instead of looking at something that isn't your preference and saying, that's wrong, it shouldn't be, which is where most people stop. Just saying that it's wrong, shouldn't be, over and over and over again, isn't solving it, isn't healing it, isn't fixing it. So the going into deeper appreciation is not the same thing as gratitude. You kind of touched on that a little bit, that there's a lot of spiritual practice out there that's so much about gratitude. I'm so grateful for everything. It sounds nice, but very often when you start speaking to someone that says they're grateful for everything, you go into a deep topic, politics, religion, the unwanted aspects of our lives. You'll find out pretty quickly they don't really have gratitude for everything. And what do you do with this list of things that you are not grateful for? Where do you put that? Well, that's the should not be list. Okay, those things shouldn't be, but they are. Why are they? Why do they persist? how do we really solve them? The demonization of something is not a solving instrument. And we have evidence of that all around us.
And so this, I'm sure, has been quite a practice for you along your journey. Let's talk about where you were moving through, where you've come to be in this place of appreciation of all things, and how this path unfolded for you. Take us down that journey, David. I would love to know your journey.
So my journey started real early childhood, as they all do, right? My early childhood, my father left when I was 6. My mother got custody of my brother and myself, and then didn't want to be a parent. And so I was really left to my own devices from about age 6 on. And what I did with that was I spent a lot of time alone. I went deep into what I now call my inner knowing. We all have this. And I would be exposed to things at school and church and things like that that would sometimes teach me things that went against my inner knowing. And I was a curious kid. I wanted to learn, but a lot of times I would just hear things, especially in a church setting, that just didn't make sense to me. And so I made the conscious decision as a child to pay more attention to my inner knowing than anything being taught to me externally. So therefore, I was kicked out of Sunday school. I was not a good student. I was really left to my own devices. I wasn't a bad kid, but I was a very introspective kid. My mother did not understand me. And when I became a teenager, I really started seeing her clearly for who and what she was. She was a physically, verbally, mentally abusive parent for sure. But it started to turn for me where instead of me feeling like a victim and feeling like I had no control, the more I appreciated her and tried to figure out why, what made you this way? Why are you like this? Why are you so nasty toward me? When I went into deep understanding of that situation, I survived that situation. This woman was telling me to kill myself at one point. So I survived that situation through a deeper understanding of her that disarmed her. It took her power over me away. So I applied that to her. I really did understand how conscious creation occurred. I didn't know what the term law of attraction meant. I always joked that when I was 14 in 1982, I thought I invented it. I thought I'm magical. When I dream of something and believe it, it actually shows up, and it did. And then I sort of came to realize that everybody has that. So, but when you're 14 in 1982, I think there was 2 books out there about this only, and I had no exposure to them. My inner knowing guided me to that. My inner knowing was always I can have, be, do anything, achieve anything. I really did buy into that and believe that. And when you grow up poor, as I did, you believe that money and material things are the answer to everything. That is happiness. When you're a poor kid, happiness is all the rich kids that get to do all the fun stuff and have all the pretty things. So through the decades of my 20s and 30s, I manifested money and material things from nothing, from a GED education and no money in my family whatsoever. I did. And then I turned 40 and I had all the things that I thought were supposed to make me happy, and they weren't making me happy. And there was this big inner knowing spiritual side of me that I had access to. It got me through life, but I really just tuned into the money and material part of it. So I decided I'm going to see what else is in this inner knowing. And I had been to psychics over the years because I kept this inner knowing hidden from people, but I knew it was there. I came to realize that I had an understanding of things unlike what I was experiencing from most other people. So I would go to psychics to find out what was going on. Finally, I met a psychic. Excuse me. Finally, I met a psychic that told me that I was a spiritual channel. And I had no idea exactly what that meant. I started to explore that a little bit. I thought it was weird. It freaked me out. I really judged it. I didn't want any part of it. But I did, again, the inner knowing part, I did start a meditation practice. And in 2010, I had a Kundalini awakening. No idea what that was. Didn't know that existed. Didn't know what was happening to me. But this energy unleashed at the base of my spine, just in a routine meditation. I wasn't doing anything special at all. And it sort of electrified me. And I feel that electrification to this day. So in that electrification, there was such a profound experience physically. So I had evidence that it was something that made me go deeper because I believed, okay, there's even more in this inner knowing than I've ever tapped into. And again, it took me into my 40s. And I spent the decade of my 40s really reinventing myself, getting really clear on how creation happens, what true happiness really is, and how I could apply that practice of appreciation that I had utilized on my mother to everything. And it literally took me that long to come around to figuring out, wait a minute, I can apply this to any topic, any person, any challenge in my life. I can apply this. And when I do, it solves it almost automatically. But we're taught not to appreciate. We are taught to judge. We are taught to fear. And in spirituality, we're very often taught a surface level gratitude. But then when you say, okay, well, what about war and famine and genocide and racism and all of these things that we hear about all the time, and it kind of stops there. Okay, how do you have gratitude for that? Well, no one really wants to talk about that because that's not easy, because it's not our preference. But can you hold a deeper understanding of it? Can you appreciate that we are very often shown things in our modern world that aren't really our experience? We're being shown other people's experiences. And the concept of we have to do something about that, I understand that. But what it does is it stokes this mass judgment and fear that stops there. There's a lot of keyboard warriors, a lot of people saying, oh, we have to do something. Someone needs to do something. This is terrible. This is awful. This is wrong. But as long as we're demonizing it energetically, we're fueling it. And humanity, I think, is just at the turning point of beginning to understand how conscious creation really works. And anything that we focus upon expands. I think a lot of us have proven that in our lives, in the past 20 years since The Secret came out. And realizing that all creation occurs that way. So anything that is triggering to you is something that is stuck in a core belief system that you can detune. And who wants to walk around being triggered? Who wants to have their vibration at the mercy of circumstances and events and other people and what's going on and what you're not allowed to look at and read and all of these things? I can look at any news program. I can go on social media. I can look at anything. And if anything triggers me a little bit, if anything takes my vibe a little down, I'm not afraid of that at all. I actually think there's a purpose to that, but I want to explore that. What's there for me? What's in my vibrational basement, if you will, lingering down there as a core limiting belief that is telling me that this thing should not be, shouldn't exist, but it does. So what are we going to do with that? So let's, instead of judging it and fearing it, let's seek deeper understanding of it, which detunes its power. And then the healing actually can happen on any topic. And when we practice this in our lives really change, because you don't need to quote unquote manifest anything to be happy. In fact, the Matrix sells us all these ideas of what we're supposed to be, do, and have to be happy or be worthy. And it's all just human created ideas. The idea of status, health, appearance, youth, wealth, whatever it is, all of these things are sold to us as this is what happiness is. Be, do, or have this thing, and you'll finally be happy. But I've met so many people over the years that are achieving happiness without those things. And I have also worked with people that have all of those things and are absolutely miserable, believing that the next thing is finally going to make them happy, and then the next thing never does. And so it just becomes this never ending cycle of I have to have more stuff, higher status, more money, more ripped body, whatever it is that you believe that you need more of to be happy. And I will say any and all of those things are fine as an experience, but learning how to be genuinely happy under any circumstances, how to detune anything that you're judging as shouldn't exist, is a superpower. And it's one that I think humanity is really wanting right now.
Mm, yes. First off, an incredible unfolding. Wow. Absolutely incredible. But I agree with you. I think that we're thirsty for so much more than what we've been told for decades, right? About manifestation, about spirituality, about what's going to make us happy, the pursuit of happiness. We're thirsty for more. And so as you were talking, many things, I want to dive into the manifestation, the high vibe concept here in just a moment. But before we really do, let's stick with this appreciation of all things. You were talking about your relationship with your mother, and then you just talked about this need, this perpetual cycle and need that we as humans, so many of us get into, of needing, wanting, achieving, striving for more, and yet still not happy. What were some needle movers for you that helped you along this path to get into the appreciation of all things, to move through those triggers and those emotions coming from your mom, that source of maternal love, the triggers of not having or of having all the things that you wanted, but realizing it didn't make you truly happy? What actually moved that needle?
Well, several things. Creation occurs in loops. So we are moving through high vibration. We're manifesting things that are our preferences. Life is going well. We're moving forward. And then inevitably, we are meant to lower our vibration. The energy field that we're existing in is polarized. So you're going to move to high to low to vibration all the time. And we don't need to experiment very much to prove that to ourselves. We know because our emotions are on this high low journey all the time. So for me, it started with my mother for sure. We teach ourselves detuning naturally. There's all things that every single person listening to this right now can think about that seemed like a tragedy or something like a curse almost that turned into a blessing. Everyone has that automatically. There's something in your past that when it was happening, it seemed like a terrible thing, worst thing ever, perhaps. And in time, you were able to appreciate that maybe you contributed to it and how you have benefited or grown as a result of it. Every single thing that we experience expands us as a being, whether it's our eternal being or our temporary human being. It makes us a wiser version of ourselves. The wisest people that you will ever speak to that are older have experienced a lot of challenges in their lives, and they've moved through those challenges and they've allowed themselves to become wiser because they've learned to appreciate their challenges. Yes, I've been divorced, I've been bankrupt, I've been homeless, I've been addicted to whatever, all of these things. You hear these people that have moved through these experiences and have made peace with them to the point of actually appreciating that they had them. Those are the wisest people you will meet, especially those that have reached old age, because their collection of human experiences has expanded their being. Those experiences may not all be what the collective, the matrix of humanity tells us they're supposed to be. The matrix says you should accumulate wealth and you should get married and you should have a family and those kids need to be perfect and you need to have the right career and you need to be healthy and you need to live in this kind of house and save for retirement and invest and have passive income and then generational wealth and have all these nice things. That's what the matrix tells us we're supposed to be, do, and have. Not many people are achieving that at this point. And the interesting thing is that the people that I've worked with that have achieved those things aren't happy. It's not delivering happiness because there's an anxiety that it could all go away, that most of humanity is living with, especially people that are more in an identity belief system. I am this and I am worthy because I've achieved these things. The matrix rewards it for sure, but what is it doing to our emotional health, our emotional intelligence? That our identity, our value is tied to the house that we live in, or our income, or our title, or our investment portfolio, or who our partner is, or how we look. If you are tying identity to any of those things, your happiness to any of those things, there's always going to be this anxiety that they're all going to go away. And I lived that way for many, many years. So my first marker, of course, was my mother. And then I had her show up in various people over and over again until I really realized, well, I haven't really fully detuned her because this personality is presenting itself in authority figures in my life a couple of more times. And then I realized the loops of creation. This is coming up again and again and again. So the next big turning point was that moment at 40 when I finally accepted what you might call my spirituality, my energetic being, that's when the exploration of all of this for me went into overdrive. And I started really realizing that, wow, all of these things have not made me happy. I don't need them. They're a problem in my life right now. I'm going to walk away from all of it. And I did. I liquidated just about everything that I had and got out of a relationship and really changed everything. And the last frontier for me was to quit my high paying corporate job. I had worked all the way into a VP level role that I really had on paper no business having because I had a GED and people that worked for me had MBAs. But I'd gotten all the way there, and my father was so impressed. You know, his dumb middle child, according to him, was the one making the most money. Sandwiched between two straight A siblings, and I just quit. I quit to do this. I started my podcast. I launched a coaching program, wrote a book, and just started teaching this system to other people. And the system really advanced once I started teaching it to other people. So there are these different, every time something really disrupted in my life, it ended up being this big turning point gift for me. And now I can say at 57, I have had just about every positive experience anybody would ever want to manifest. Gotten into the best shape of my life at one point. Money, material things, traveling on a yacht, private jet, living in a beautiful house, driving great cars, all of those material things, status. I've experienced all of it. And my most cherished memories are the tough times. The time after I quit my job when my money did run out and I'm at the supermarket with coupons for the first time in my life, buying groceries with cash in my wallet because my credit cards were all maxed out. I love that story now. That was a big lesson turning point for me and my vibrational relationship with money as a self-employed person, as opposed to being employed. I love that story. I cherish that memory of walking through the supermarket with the cash in my wallet saying, what can I afford today? More than some of the six-figure vacations I've been on. They're nice, but those really challenging moments when we turn the lens of appreciation on them turn into our greatest gifts, and they expand our being, expand our consciousness. Now we know what it's like. And when you really get deep into the practice of non-judgment, you realize how useless that labeling something of should not be really is, because anything that I look at that's not a preference, I know I'm not solving it or changing it by judging it that it's wrong or shouldn't exist.
Which really screams to me that you have this beautifully different, unique definition of what manifestation and being high vibe really is. I mean, it literally exists or can exist in all circumstances. Wow. Yeah. So, David, is there a belief about manifestation or being high vibe that you wrote in your early notes along your journey that you've calculated, you thought were part of the process, but that you started to realize they actually didn't make the mark and they didn't end up in the work that you did? They had no place to end up in the work that you do now.
I would say the biggest challenge in my journey of deeper understanding of creation is the concept of just focus on what you want all the time and you'll be fine. Everything will just show up. I found that not to be true. I think a lot of people have found that not to be true. There was a very surface level law of attraction movement that happened about 20 years ago. And I think it's great that it did, because it was almost like a gateway drug. It was almost like you're going to figure out how to get more of what you want and less of what you don't want. Who would not be interested in that, right? Or at least intrigued by it. Some people got into that and really went down the rabbit hole of law of attraction and are still there. A lot of people, though, became disenchanted with it because they tried to manifest. They see things show up in certain ways, but then it can be very frustrating if you don't figure out the other part that isn't necessarily shared in those writings and those teachings, that low vibration has value. Low vibration exists really to challenge any creation so that it can be made better, stronger, more evolved. obviously that's the way of the universe. Science tells us that. We see that all around us in nature, that things are evolving and becoming a better version of themselves all the time. And then what do we do as human beings in our creation? We're constantly trying to make something a better version of technology or whatever it is that we create. We're always wanting to improve. That energy is the energy of the universe, that energy of expansion, always overriding itself, becoming a better version of itself, more sophisticated. I think scientists will refer to this sometimes as density, more dense expansion. It's all the same topic. And I like to take that and say, okay, what evidence do we have of challenge making us stronger? And I always say, well, think about a forest and a tree, and the oldest tree in that forest has definitely experienced multiple storms. Storms always come through of some sort, challenge life for sure. The tree has been challenged by the storm. It's probably been damaged by the storm, but ultimately it's made stronger by the storm. So the storm comes through, the storm is temporary. The tree is experiencing far more sunshine and rain showers and beauty than storms. But in our lives, human beings, we tend to really focus on the storm. And we really get tunnel vision on, oh, my life is terrible, it's awful, it's all about this. There may be 10 other positive things going on, but when we really get focused on the one unwanted thing and park ourselves in that unwanted judgment that shouldn't exist, then we see other things like that show up. So the way out of that is to understand that low vibration has its place. We all go there from time to time. Notice what's showing up in your belief system when you're down in that lower vibrational space. You're a different version of yourself down there than you are when you're in a higher frequency. And the lower frequency exists for this cycle of creation to occur, because if we just sat and manifested everything that we wanted all the time, we would become bored with that very quickly, and we would find a way to disrupt it and mess it up and start the creation process all over again. So why not lean into that as a lifestyle? That's what Taya is. We lean into that as a lifestyle, and what it delivers is emotional intelligence. Why fear the storm? There's another storm coming. It's okay. We will withstand the storm. And if we don't, that's okay too, because life is temporary no matter what. So why bother fearing or judging any of it?
Yeah. And I know I say this from people that I've worked with, from people that are in my sphere of influence, from my own personal experience. It's easy to get into that thought process of, I need to stay in positive thinking to stay high vibe. If I want to manifest the life of my dreams, then I can't, I shouldn't, I mustn't think bad thoughts or negative thoughts or feel those negative emotions. David, why does positive thinking fail? And can you speak on what goes on in the brain and the body that really makes positive thinking not necessarily the best option when it comes, well, not always the best option when it comes to manifestation and staying high vibe?
Well, the concept of moving your mind to deeper understanding, that's my version of positive thinking. That's appreciation of all things. But when most people say just think positive, are you thinking positive and projecting a desired outcome, or are you fearing the negative? And is there an underlying fear of, I'm not allowed to think about this possibly not working out, or I'm not allowed to think about that? Because it exists. We all have things buried in our subconscious mind that are always there. That's why I like low vibe, because it actually reveals those things to us. And when we get into teachings around positive thinking, I believe so much of it promotes the concept that you can just park yourself there and be in positive all the time, high vibe all the time, never fall out of that, and that it's bad to be down in low vibration. Certainly, as we clean up our vibrational basement, yeah, your general vibration does rise and life does get better. There is an ego-driven end result to all of this. We're still ego-driven beings. We're not going to kill our ego off completely, but we can detune it, put it in its proper place, and allow the source-driven version of us, which is appreciation of all things, to really be the leader in our life experience. This way, we're still having experiences. My ego is why I created Taya. my ego is why I'm on your podcast right now talking about it. My ego is why I write books and have a podcast and have a coaching academy, because I have a preference to teach these things. So my ego is not bad. Ego in balance is a good thing. Ego out of balance is I think I'm superior in doing that, or I think I'm special, or trying to crush my competition because I have to be the best. That's when ego spirals a little bit out of control. So it's really having the emotional intelligence to understand that ego has its place, preference has its place. It's okay to have something that's not a preference. We're discerning preferences all the time. We have to. That's how we get through life. But that amped up, you must be positive all the time, only focus on what you want, don't ever go into low vibration. There's a lot of teachings in mainstream spirituality that I think have sort of seen their day, and a lot of people have experimented. It hasn't done what they thought it was going to do, and now they're looking for something else. And I think a lot of folks feel like they're sort of out in the wilderness now. Religion didn't work for them. Mainstream spirituality is a big tent with lots of belief systems in it, and a lot of that energy work is very valid. Energy is a thing. We know that we can heal through energy. We know that we can heal ourselves. We know that consciousness creates. We know that. But then you get into all of these other things that bring ego back into it. Oh, I'm a spiritual channel and you're not. I'm a star seed. I'm blessed. I'm a special being. We all are that. We all are that. The source consciousness is in all of us. It's just how much are we choosing to pay attention to it? And in my appreciation of all things, I am very appreciative of people that think all this is insane. I can laugh along with them if they think that I'm crazy for teaching this stuff, or that it's wrong, or even if it's evil. That's just a belief system that they're in. And I can respect and even appreciate other people's belief systems. I do not believe in a one size fits all anything. I believe that we're here in a spectrum of creation, and the most devout person over here and the most non-believing person over there and everything in between has value in our world. It creates the human experience. So why not just appreciate all of it and not try to judge an experience that someone else is having that really has nothing to do with you whatsoever?
As you were talking, I had this probably a remembrance, really, but I'm just going to say it was an aha. That manifestation is really all about energy. So if you're doing this positive thinking, if you're really just focusing on all the positive thoughts, and deep down you're feeling the fear, you're actually keeping yourself in that lower vibration, but not allowing yourself to see that, to heal, to do the work, to use the low vibration in more of a healthy way. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's so interesting as you explained all that. I also, as you talked about how you really have gotten to this place of staying very open to everybody's belief systems. One thing that I thought was really interesting that popped into my head was it feels like curiosity creates this energy flow. Curiosity creates this energy flow to allow you to attract in and to manifest, really. Does that feel like your experience when you stay more curious and open?
The cycles of creation, I do believe that low vibration is there to inspire new creation for sure, and low vibration can inspire a lot of curiosity. When things are going really, really well, we tend to allow ourselves to run on autopilot and really just enjoy when things are going well, and we don't think about things so much. And then something happens, we get an unwanted diagnosis or an unexpected bill, or something goes on in a relationship, and things go a little sideways, and that curiosity comes in. What's going on? Why is this? Everything was so perfect. And then we get into this notion that when things are going well, we fear, what do they call it, when the other shoe drops. We fear that next unwanted thing that's going to come, because we know it is. But that is a cycle of creation. So instead of fearing the next challenge that's coming up, just know that it's coming up, enjoy what's working while it's working, and then retrain yourself to meet the downshift in appreciation, if not joy. Joy is a harder one for a lot of things, for a lot of people, but you can meet it in deeper understanding. I had a situation a couple of years ago where we spent 6 months remodeling a home, And as soon as we finished the remodel, the home burned. And I was pretty deep into this practice. I was already teaching it for several years. The book was almost published. It wasn't quite published yet. And I remember sitting in the driveway watching dozens of firefighters rush into my home that I just spent 6 months working on. I could hear chainsaws, there were axes. I knew they were ripping it apart to put the fire out. And I was able to sit there and say, okay, this is what we're doing now. And that was interesting. I surprised, but that was an authentic reaction. It wasn't, oh, I'm the teacher of Taya, I have to be cool with this. No, this was, 10:30 at night until 2:30 a.m. This went on. And so at that hour, you're not nearly as, together in the middle of the night when your house is being torn apart. But my authentic reaction, and I love authenticity. So my authentic reaction was that. If it had been something different, it would have been that, but it wasn't. And this process took 2 years to rebuilding it back in the home. So that was quite a journey to move through over 2 years building the house back. And it really showed me, once this becomes your vibe, this appreciation of all things becomes your vibe, it just happens on autopilot, because attraction does happen on autopilot. Creation does happen that way. We're always creating. Everything is a manifestation, everything. Now, we can be more intentional, absolutely. But what you touched on earlier, when we are focusing on something and really thinking that we need it to be happy and it's not here, generally what we're doing is we are vibing, it's not here. That's what the universe is receiving from. The universe is not judging. I see no evidence that the universe is judging our manifestations. That's why we can manifest extreme poverty, all sorts of things, harming other people and ourselves. The universe isn't saying we shouldn't do that, so we're not going to allow you to do that. No, we're allowed to create anything that we want to create without judgment from source or the universe. That's very, very clear to me. So we're able to create anything without judgment. If something isn't showing up that we really want, it's because our dominant vibration it's missing. Well, why do you need it so bad that you're noticing it's not here? Because you think you need it to be happy. So the magic of all of this is, once you learn to be happy no matter what, yes, you are a happier person day by day, every day of your life. You're able to live in authentic joy, clarity, and then we always say abundance also, though, because well-being flows from that mindset. So the things that you want, even the material things that you might want to experience, flow in with greater ease because you're not needing them anymore. Your identity is not tied to them anymore. Your happiness is no longer tied to them. Wouldn't that be great? I'm happy now. I'll be happy when I have that. And if it goes away, I'll be happy then as well. That is such a superpower when you're able to live your life like that and practice it. I always say practice, because you don't just flip a switch and get there overnight. It takes practice, and it does take some really dedication to it. Anything that you practice on a regular basis, you're going to get better at. So practicing Taya, that's why we created 4 pillars of Taya: appreciation, source, polarity, and intention. That's all the practice is. That way it will never become a religion. It will never become rules. It will never become worship or dogmatic or anything like that. We practice in Taya those 4 things as a way of life. It's our foundational belief system all day, every day. So anytime you move into low vibration and something triggers you, the first thing we do is, wow, I create a kind of a catch for things. This is what we're doing. That was a great catch. Or another catch, this too shall pass. A lot of people use that. One of my favorite catches is bullshit makes the world go round. I know that sounds very cynical, but it's my way when I get, we got a tax bill on a property that we sold 2 years ago, out of the blue. And my partner was getting so frustrated by it. And I said, no, this is okay. Bullshit makes the world go round. They've got a computer that spits out these bills, and sometimes people pay them, and it's a way to generate revenue. We have one. It's something we have to deal with. But, this is just the way of the world, and it's okay. So bullshit makes the world go round is my way of sort of detuning the power over politics and systems and dealing with insurance companies when you're rebuilding a house that's burned down, all of that bureaucracy. It's just acknowledging that everything is just an illusion of consciousness. Everything is. So the person that's over here screaming about their favorite politics and thinking everyone else is wrong, they're not wrong. They're in that experience. That's the vibe they're in, and that's the experience they're having, and they can have it. And they're only a threat to you and your well-being if you allow them to be. And the person that opposes them is having the same thing. They're in there, oh no, 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 you're evil and you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why I'm right and all that. It's all BS, because everything is just a creation of consciousness. Everyone's operating in their own belief system. And when you really understand that, other people don't trigger you anymore. And what I've noticed is since I've detuned that, I don't have any issues with other people in public whatsoever. I'm able to just move through an appreciation. And anytime anything is a little sideways, like if I'm in traffic and somebody cuts in front of me and it triggers me a little bit, I realize I'm not in a good vibrational place in the first place, or that would have never happened. And my judging it this way is making it worse. And I can adjust it instantaneously, and then it doesn't happen anymore. The rest of my commute is great. So that's the intentionality part of manifestation. Oh, yeah. What is my vibe before I get behind the wheel? What is my vibe before I go on a podcast? What is my vibe before I go into a meeting or meeting with a client or something like that? Getting your vibe in check and understanding that you are creating with your consciousness. And when you pre-create with your mind, it comes out that way. And every once in a while it might not, but that's just part of that curiosity thing that you were talking about. Well, why didn't it? Let me explore that without judging myself. Oh yeah, I wasn't really where I thought I was or wanted to be vibration. I was kind of kidding myself. I was still angry about that thing that happened that I didn't detune, and I brought that energy over into this other situation. I geek out on that stuff. I love the little minutia of creation and really exploring it, and then kind of fine tuning it all the time.
Mm. I have so many questions I want to ask, but I have to ask this one first. Do you believe in coincidences when it comes to life's creations and the things that you experience?
I don't believe anything is really a coincidence. Everything is a creation of consciousness. There have been so many serendipitous moments and magical things that have happened in my lifetime that I don't think it's a coincidence. I was talking to somebody about manifesting money, and I really don't talk about that a lot anymore because everybody's talking about that. But I had experiences early on where I needed, in my 20s, where I needed a specific amount of money to pay a bill, and it literally showed up on my driveway, stuck to my driveway, stacks of $100 bills. There was a time that I was buying my first home, and we needed a little more money to go to closing. We didn't have it. My stepmother calls out of the blue. Didn't even know we were buying the house. I'm not that close to her. Oh, your father bought this life insurance policy, and you can cash it in now. And it's exactly the amount of money that I needed to close. In my whole life, she's never called me about money ever. So, I know that we're creating with our consciousness. I bought a house and went toward closing, knowing in my core being that everything always works out for me, because I do believe that. And sure enough, it did. So when things went sideways, oh, you're not going to have enough money to come to closing. What are you going to do? You're going to lose your escrow? Is you're not going to get the house or whatever? I'm sure I felt that for a minute, and then I recalibrated and said, no, that we'll figure this out. We will. We'll just figure it out. And as soon as I get to that vibe, you get the phone call. And so when that isn't working for you, it's because your core foundational belief system is operating in a way that doesn't allow that. So there are no coincidences. We're creating all of it. There are some things that we don't necessarily understand. And I like the exploration of it. But if I don't yet understand it, and I'm trying to sort of hammer away at figuring it out, my vibe drops and that source consciousness is no longer there. I know to walk away from it. If I get frustrated trying to figure something out, the first thing I do is step away. I step away. I jokingly say I go have a smoke break. I don't smoke, but I go have you go take that little quick break and come back. I go out, have a break, go outside for a minute, go play with my dog for a minute, get my vibe back in the right space where I want to be. And then the solution is always right there. And this is a way of life now. It's all the time. And I run a very complex business. So, there's some sort of challenge every single day that we are solving. And we know, and my team practices this as well. We cannot solve it when we're judging it as something that shouldn't be happening.
And I love that. I agree with you. I wanted to see what your perspective was because I see so many people poo-pooing away things that they just believe is a mere coincidence and then never really looking at what's going on in the foundation. and running into the same problems over and over and over. And then consequently, that vibe just keeps lowering and lowering and
Mhm.
lowering, and they keep perpetuating in that cycle. So, yeah, that's very interesting. Let's talk about this low fuels growth because we're here talking about the low vibe, how the low vibe can help you to really expand and to grow and to get into a deeper understanding, a deeper healing, a deeper connection to manifestation. But before we talk about some of these principles that you teach in TYA to help move through that, I want to talk about our nervous systems and the concept of low fuels growth. What does that, let's start at the basic. What does that mean in your practice, first off? And what is actually going on in the body when it comes to the nervous system and the other bodily functions that is in connection with this low fuels growth concept to help you either expand energy or how does it contract energy?
Yeah, well, I definitely believe that our bodies are receptors of energy, and it's like we're in a physical vehicle here to experience Earth, in this case, as a human being. And so, the more I think about the body as a product, how am I utilizing my body to experience this lifetime on Earth as a being of Earth, and understanding that it's a receptor of energy, and that when we are holding on to things, that energy does get trapped in our body, and it can manifest as illness, as we all know. And the energetic holding on to things usually starts very early at the beginning of life. And our parents are our original teachers. So we always say your parents are your original transgressors that need to be detuned, because by design, your parents are vibrational beings just like we are. And they're going to teach you a mix of things. Some of those things are going to work for you. And no matter how well intended they are, some of those things simply aren't. So you are creating a foundational belief system of contrasts from the right out of the gate. So in that foundational belief system, what happens is our emotions just reflect how we're reacting to what we're experiencing. So we know what being tense feels like. We know what that anger, that plummeting feeling of anger feels like when the energy shifts in our body. And it's just a fantastic indicator of where we are vibrationally, and how we're choosing to experience something. So high, low vibration, I say that everyone moves. Your life is like a vibrational landscape. Throughout the day, you're moving up and down vibrationally. You're just moving through different energy fields. We all are. But how you respond to them is learned behavior, because there are times that I am in a low vibration state, and maybe I'm just physically tired and more apt from being physically tired, like exhausted at the end of the day, to being triggered by something, or, in just in that state of being. I can realize now that I am physically tired, and that's why I'm having this different experience than I would be otherwise. Or I'm just moving through a period of lower vibrational flow. And I know that I am, because when I wake up in the morning, my top of mind thoughts are not the most positive thoughts. How do you get a hold of that? Well, I have a practice of, I don't get out of bed until I find 3 to 5 things to appreciate. And they can be the same things every day, and it works. I live in the desert. I appreciate the blue sky. I appreciate my French bulldog Lola. I appreciate that I have a soft bed to sleep in. I appreciate that I have a temperature control environment to, those little things. When I just get moving in the direction of things that I appreciate, all of those problems that may start churning the second I wake up, all of that just dissolves. And suddenly I can feel that I'm in a different energy field. And really, what I found is that if I'm very protective over how I'm feeling, paying attention to, what's making me tense, what's lifting me up, really leaning into that, my life goes much better. We spend a lot of time, especially today, in what I call get it done mode. You got to get life done. You got to get on those emails. All this technology has just made life a lot more complicated. Every time something new comes out that's supposed to make life easier, like Chat GPT, we go down the rabbit hole of using it, and all of a sudden it opens up all these possibilities. We're more productive, and guess what? We're right back to working just as hard, if not harder, than we ever were. That's okay. That's how we're really wired. But I've noticed that over the years that there's no new technology that is coming that we're just going to go sit in a lounge chair and do nothing all day. Nor do we even want to do that. 2 or 3 days at a 5-star resort is great. I am very bored about day 3. Having people wait on me hand and foot. The food is amazing. The views are great. Everything's comfortable. Everything's done for you. You go back to your room and it's all clean. It's so nice. That's lovely for a bit. And then it gets really boring. What do you want to do? We need to go on an excursion. We need to get out of here. We need to go do something else. We're like that. We need, you have a little bit of that comfort, but we're not just here for comfort. And I used to hear people, sit, in these spiritual teachings and ask these spiritual channels, I just want to sit and manifest money from nowhere. Well, everybody loves the concept of passive income. Why would you not? But if you sit and manifest money from nowhere, you're going to create some sort of disruption to that naturally, because we did not come here to just sit and manifest money from nowhere. We came here to create something, even if it's just a big old spin out in life where we're addicted and we're homeless and we're, harming ourselves in different ways. From the source consciousness, that's still an experience. It's still expansion of consciousness. It's all the same thing. From a human preference experience, we judge that as wrong, but yet they're having their experience. And how are we helping them by saying you shouldn't be this way? I would much rather look at somebody in appreciation and say, hey, they're having their experience. I don't have to be party to it, but they're having their experience. I can appreciate them and send more healing power their way in my appreciation of them as they are. I have a lot of parents in my program who have children that are addicted and worse things that have happened that are even worse than that. And making sense of your child's experience when you're programmed to judge it so much, that's a huge lift off of any parent's shoulders when you stop judging your parenting and you stop judging the experience of your child. A lot of my work is that over the past few years. So when I see that happening for other people and realize that we can detune anything, if you can bring a mother to detune the murder of her child, you can detune anything. I like to use that example because we've really seen that happen in my program. And if she can detune that, I can detune anything that happens in my life.
As you were talking, David, I thought to myself, with these ups and downs that so naturally come into our world, that come into our day, it can really make a lot of us panic. And so I'm curious if there is a way that we can chart our own daily rhythm so that we can ride the dips without panicking and start to allow ourselves to open and expand and heal through the lows rather than panic in the lows.
That's a good point, because we do run largely on autopilot. We run on our subconscious belief system, our foundational belief system. So that's why when I created the 4 pillars, they're not just catchy words. They came down to catchy words, but really the practice of appreciation is an all day, everyday default way of being. And it does become autopilot after you do it for a while, where anything that I judge, anytime I feel a drop in vibration, I always notice that, wow, underneath this drop in vibration, I am judging something as shouldn't exist. This computer program shouldn't be doing this right now, or I shouldn't be having to do this right now, or the lights aren't working and that shouldn't be. Anytime I judge something, it shouldn't be. We had friends coming over the other night. We watched the new Downton Abbey movie, and we have this big fancy TV and screening room and all that. Well, 5 minutes before they're due, I turn the TV on and there's no sound. And I go out to the garage and we have this stack thing out there that I have no clue how to really operate. And I'm trying to unplug and plug things back in. And then I caught myself and realized, you know what? If the TV doesn't work, we'll just sit around and have a lovely conversation. It's fine. It's fine. What happens? I rebooted everything, go back in, and it works just fine. So life works that way. And when you start really leaning into and enjoying that, hey, I can really shift anything energetically instantly and have a different experience with it. So a challenge just becomes an opportunity to expand, an opportunity for growth. And this applies to greater challenges. So when you're doing that appreciation pillar as just a way of life, it just starts running on autopilot. The source pillar is all about what is source consciousness really, and what is ego. We're beings of duality. So you're one part humanity or ego, and you're one part source. We all are. We all have inner knowing. And how do we allow more of that source to be the primary driver of our life? Meditation, appreciation is part of it. Understanding the source perspective. If I'm viewing something and judging it and source isn't, because I do not believe that source judges anything. Source is the source of all creation. Why would source judge something that its energy is creating, right? It's not a human, but still that energy of creation. So if I can apply that to any topic at any time, then I really am working in that pillar of source more. The polarity pillar is just about understanding our vibrational nature. Like you said, there's times that we're up, there's times that we're down. We feel it in our body as a result of that. Our nervous system responds to this shifting vibration. That's a wonderful indicator. Just like when you get in your car and the light comes on and says, don't start your car right now, you're going to damage it. Okay, maybe I shouldn't start the car right now. Maybe I need to see what's going on here. We have that built into us. We have it. And then intention finally is just about what is your preference? What do you want to happen? Now that you've got these other things going that do raise your vibration as a system and allow you to move more efficiently through low vibration, then what do you want? Whatever you want's up to you. There's no rules in this practice. So you get to have it, but understand that in physical, everything is an experience that we move through, beginning, middle, and end to everything. Your title, your wealth, your status, your appearance, your youth, all of it, we're going to move through it. Can you move through it elegantly in appreciation of it without attaching need to it? Because if you know how to be happy and appreciate all things with nothing, that is a superpower, because now you can experience anything. And if it goes away tomorrow, you're still happy.
And so if a reader is reading your book and is going through these principles, is there a one-page dog-eared piece that you would want that reader to really dog-ear and just remember, because it is that darn important when it comes to this conversation that we're having?
Well, the book is very thick, so there's a lot in there. So I would say a one-page dog ear would be everything coming down to understanding that emotional intelligence piece. What is source? What is ego? And that's all through the book. So there's not, I can't say go to page 219 and see this, but what is source? What is ego for yourself and collectively for humanity? Because it's all really the same, just multiplied out across humanity. I call the collective ego of humanity the Matrix. I don't think the Matrix is specifically evil. I do see that the Matrix runs largely on fear and judgment. It runs in opposition of universal law. It's there to create tension, and it creates. We would not be having a podcast right now talking this way, able to do this just about anywhere in the planet without the Matrix. So the Matrix has its place. Your ego has its place. Discerner of preference. I like this. I don't like that. Understand what those things are. And I love to say, and this isn't even in the book, I love to say, I visualize this sort of ride that I'm on as a human being, as a car. And there's a driver's seat and there's a back seat. I want my ego in the back seat, directing. I'd love to go over here. I don't want to go over there, but I want source in the driver's seat. This is how we get there. There's going to be twists and turns. We're going to be okay. I've got you. I'm driving. That's the way I look at this duality that we're experiencing. I don't see source as a deity that needs to be worshiped or obeyed at all. I don't view source as a person. When I started channeling, and I had my own, my first podcast was the stream of David. The sign still says that. It was just my stream of consciousness. I was very clear about that. I believe everyone that's channeling is channeling source filtered through their ego, and that's okay. We're all doing that. I went really deep into mine and fleshed it out to a point where not only could I teach it, I created a functional practice around it that allows anyone to learn it and apply it and practice it with ease. That's, that system I think is very important, because religion gave us a system, but then that system had a lot of human interaction added to it for behavioral control that turned a lot of us away from it. But the core of religion, the core of Christianity, even those teachings, is have faith, believe, treat each other well. All of those things are there. And then there's a lot of human created rules that got mixed into that. So I have seen the core of this through so many other practices, and they tend to get corrupted over time, especially if they get popular, because they get monetized. So that's why I did the 4 pillars, because if you just practice these 4 pillars as a way of being, it raises your vibration systematically. It allows you to move through low vibration more effectively. It allows manifestation, but it also allows you to see the BS of a lot of manifestational teachings, that you're not going to get every single thing that you want all the time. You are going to manifest the house, and then you're going to burn it down, and then you're going to build it back again. And you can love the whole process. That's what life is. That's what creation is. This reaching for perfection without acknowledging the challenge that drives us there. I always say, let's just reach for evolution and improvement, and appreciate that challenge is really what inspires that. That's what inspires the curiosity.
Mm. And this duality, this matrix and ego, and understanding the concept of that and how it interacts, but then also bringing source in, it's really this concept of mastering the vibration, you know? And so I would love for you to maybe expand on mastering vibration, making it practical. What inputs can we actually control? And what real world outputs should we start to see by this work that we're doing? Why should we do this work, David? That's what I want to know.
Well, first of all, I would say that if you're here listening to your podcast, anybody that's listening, they're curious about how to get better at this. So the why is, it's your preference to operate this way. There's no mandate from source that everybody has to be a Tayist, that everybody has to believe what I teach. And I'm not on street corners trying to recruit people in. I'm definitely exposing it to people that might be interested in it. But, it's a different mindset. So the why would be, I would say the why is, if you just want to be happier, authentically happier, no matter what happens in your life, because challenges come to everyone. I know if somebody is struggling financially, this concept that money fixes everything. Money is a powerful tool in our world, and we exchange it for almost everything. That's true. But I have had billionaires in my program that are absolutely unhappy people, to the point of being miserable, because the money has made them that way. It's like things are out of balance, and there's too much money, and the money just creates a whole new set of problems. So the why would be learning to make yourself authentically happy, regardless of what's happening in the world, regardless of what's happening in your life, really finding authentic joy and appreciation and the exploration of why you are the way that you are, why you're experiencing, is so incredibly empowering. I would much rather own all my stuff, every aspect of my life, every mistake I've ever made, every flaw and imperfection that I'm still experiencing right now. I would rather wrap my arms around all of it and say, hey, all of this is mine. The matrix may say I need to, look a different way or be a different way, or something like that, but it doesn't matter what the matrix says. All of this is my creation. I came here to create. There is no positive. There is no negative. All of it expands my consciousness, expands my being eternally. If you get into that belief system and really practice that and really go down into that vibration, we can tune into any vibrational reality that we want. It takes time, and it takes practice, and it takes commitment and dedication. It does. It's not easy. If it were easy, people would read one book on manifestation and they would never need to explore it again or listen to a podcast or read it. We are existing in a matrix that works in opposition of universal law, and we're coming to see that. That is what we call awakening. And in your awakening, there's going to be all these different things out there that are luring you in, maybe even what I'm talking about. Don't be afraid of exploring any of them, all of them. Understand, though, that everything has the power that you choose to give to it. So if you believe in Reiki, I know that you teach Reiki. Yes, that can work. But you also know that if somebody comes to you and says, I think this Reiki is a bunch of crap, it's not going to do anything for me, it's probably not going to work for them. Because all healing ultimately is self-healing, but there are facilitators of these things that you can choose to give power to. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with choosing to give power to someone or something or a practice or a tool. We need systems. If there were another page in my book that I would say dog ear, it would be that this idea that we don't need a foundational operating system, religion is BS and politics is BS. What I found is every person that's ever claimed to be an atheist that just believes in nothing, 5 minutes into a conversation, you see what they really believe in, what they really worship, what they're giving power to. It's commerce, it's title, it's money, it's politics, it's something else. But we all need that, acknowledging that none of us are above operating in a belief system, and they're all chosen. So choose one that really resonates with how you want your life to go. If you really think more money and material things is the way to go, and you want to be in that thread of manifestation and follow that on Instagram, do it. I don't think there's a penalty at the end of life for doing that. And if that works and makes you happy, then that's what you should do. And I did that. And I did it to a point where I realized that, okay, for me, this isn't really making me happy the way that I thought it would. I got rid of all of it, started over again. I'm back in abundance again. I'm back in a 4,000 square foot house. I'm back here, but I'm experiencing it very differently this time. My identity is not attached to it. I just appreciate it. I enjoy it. But if it goes away tomorrow, or if I end up living on the street somewhere, I have people in the business world that try to sell me things. Oh, your business is going to go under and you're going to be, okay. They have nowhere to go with you when you're like that. Okay. An attorney was talking to me about something once and trying to use all this fear, oh, you're going to get in trouble if you don't do this and you don't do that. And okay, that's okay. I will experience that. If that comes to be, I've had enough unwanted experiences in my life that I move through and been completely fine on the other side of. I'm no longer going to choose to fear those things. So every belief system is chosen. We all have one. Create one that we do create these for ourselves. Create one that works in harmony with universal law. Really understand what that is, and in harmony with what you want to experience.
David, if a listener only changed one daily behavior starting either today or tomorrow, which single habit moves the needle the most over time and why that one? Where should they start?
I would say training yourself to refocus in deeper understanding, what I call appreciation. And remember, appreciation is not preference. You can look at something and say, this isn't my preference. But instead of looking at it and saying, oh, that's so terrible, that's wrong, let me turn it off because you can't handle it, or that's wrong, that's awful, that's evil, I'm going to get online and talk about how evil it is. Instead, refocus. Why is it this way? What's driving that behavior? Anytime somebody is doing something, quote unquote, to you, there's a reason behind it. Understand what that reason is. Accept that BS makes the world go round. Everything is an illusion of consciousness. There's always going to be some system out there that's trying to, get money from you, or some sort of a reaction from you. But you don't have to give any of those things power. When those things show up, you don't have to give them power. You don't have to be afraid to open the mail or your email, because you don't have to give anything power. There's so many times that we get triggered by something and a little bit of time passes and then it seems like nothing. We are capable of achieving that non-reaction at the onset. So getting into that practice of anything that triggers you, refocus in appreciation, and it will change your life. If you are getting drawn into the political conversations that are happening today, always happening for sure, but it seems to be heating up quite a bit in recent years, and it triggers you, have a deeper understanding of anything that triggers you. Why is this being presented to me this way? Why is this way? Really go into the why and the curiosity of it instead of the judgment of it. Because again, if something exists, there's no point in saying that it shouldn't, because it already does. So what do we do with it? We understand it. What created this, and how do we get out of it, or how do we heal it or solve it? It's always going to be through appreciation. Always. Source heals, source solves, source evolves. It's always there. But when we're busy judging something it should not be, we're cutting that source consciousness off.
This has been such an incredible conversation, really expanding into a different viewpoint of manifestation that I don't think that we've ever talked about or had any of this level of depth in our conversation. So, before we find out where we can get our hands on your book, where you're hanging out, let's do a few rapid fire questions, all right? I want to really allow the listener to understand how maybe you view or use or implement some of these conversations that we've had today. All right? Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, David. First question. What's your tell that you're channeling guidance versus narrating a preference?
when I know when I'm channeling myself, when it's so clear, it's just flowing, and I'm sometimes surprised by what's flowing, and I'm saying aha in that moment. Other people know me well enough to know when I dip into channeling. I've dipped into channeling here. We all do in our own way, but I know when the clarity is there, and I'm really able to make sense of something that seems senseless to myself and other people, that is source flowing through me.
Good one. Yeah. All right. Question number 2. What is one alignment cliche that you'd delete tomorrow? And what is your one-line replacement for it?
Oh, alignment cliche. Well, I alignment has gotten so twisted in itself. There's certain terms that I try not to use much because they're just so overused out there, and people still don't know what that means. Alignment. Oh, I've got to get in alignment with it. I think alignment itself, and I would take you have to get into alignment. ... I would flip that over to what I call the sweet spot of manifestation, which is just appreciation without need. And it's a little clunkier than alignment. I always say the sweet spot of manifestation, appreciation without need, is, wouldn't that be nice? That vibe. That's the sweet spot of, I'm looking at something, my preference is to experience it, own it, have it, be it, do it, whatever it is. But not, I've got to have that. I must have that. I need to get into alignment with that. I've got to, if it's not showing up, it's because you're not in quote unquote alignment with it. It is it is a good word. It just gets used a lot. And a lot of times people don't understand what that means. And they think, well, to align with something, I've got to look in the mirror and do my affirmations every day, and I've got to play it on a loop all the time. That can be effective, but very often it actually produces this vibration of need, the vibration of it's not here. If you think you're in alignment, if you think you're in alignment with it and it's not showing up, you're not. You're in need. And it's so hard sometimes to see that we're in a vibration of need. And a little bit of time, usually, we can look back and realize, oh, I was so in the vibration of need back then. I stopped needing it, stopped caring about it. And then it showed up. And so I would say that, wouldn't it be nice vibe, that sweet spot? Again, there's no singular word for it. Alignment is succinct, but understanding that alignment is not forced. Alignment is something that is more of a natural state of being, where you appreciate it, you don't need it, and it just shows up. And it does work.
I like that. Wouldn't it be nice? I like that. All right. Last question. If your current guidance had a flavor or taste, what would it be?
I was going to say spice is the first thing that came to mind.
That's what I was thinking.
Spice. There's a little devil in me. My father loved to tell, he passed away a couple years ago. He loved to tell the story of when I was a child. They had this thing when I was a kid where if you swore, they would wash your mouth out with soap. And my father, and I remember this, he says I was like 2 or 3. And my father washed my mouth out with soap. And I said, oh, that tastes good. I want some more. So there's this little disruptive devil in me that likes to challenge and likes to push. And I think that's why I like terms like bullshit makes the world go round. It kind of is a little, kind of grabs your attention. I like to push the envelope a little bit. I like the concept of disruption, not in a negative way, but we can always make everything better, more improved, more evolved, everything. I believe that we're doing that with spirituality and law of attraction teachings in Taya, that we are really disrupting those things. And they're not bad. I think The Secret did an amazing job introducing the concept of conscious creation and packaging it in a brilliant marketing way for the masses to start understanding that. Absolutely did its job. Is it the whole story? No. But would that have been too much? Probably. So there's a journey. I see a journey of a lot of people are raised in some type of religion. They reach adulthood. That's not working for them. So they were out of it. Maybe they claim they're an atheist, but they understand there's some sort of energy behind creation. Then they get drawn into law of attraction. That takes them so far. And then they get drawn into mainstream spirituality. And there's a lot of different things out there that you can explore. Everything has the power that you give to it. But I kind of wanted to get all the fluff and all the external tools and all the things out of the way and say, okay, if we just want to give power to ourselves, our own belief system, how do we do that? And that's where Taya came from. And everything that I teach is really about that. So that being willing to say all that stuff is great, but I still think there's a better, more efficient way. And I'm okay with calling it out and saying, I have a way. It's not the only way, but I have a way that you might want to try. And it's really disruptive and it really works. And we're going to call things as they are. I definitely have that about me. So I would say spice is
I can
spice is
see
probably
it.
the best word. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. David, where can people find you? How can they get into your world? And where can they buy your book?
The book is on Amazon. We have an audiobook version of it. That's the bestseller by far. Everybody loves audiobooks these days. So there is an audiobook, paperback, hardcover on Amazon, the Taya Practice, the TYA Practice. And the best place to learn more about Taya, other than just the book, is tayaacademy.com, TYAacademy.com. We have a learning hub there that you can join. So there's this free learning hub. You get a newsletter every week that's new teachings, and you get invited to our Sunday lives, which we do a live gathering on Zoom every Sunday at 9 a.m. 10 a.m. Pacific. So you get all of that by just going to TYAacademy.com and registering there.
This has been such a fabulous conversation. Thank you so much. And as always, those links will be down in the show notes. So make sure you jump on down there and get your hands onto the book, get yourself into David's circle and into all things manifestation. David, do you have any last words that you would like to lay on the hearts of the listeners for today?
This has been a lot of fun. I like the questions that you ask. I love the rapid fire. It really made me think and really present some things that aren't just typical podcast discussions. So I really appreciate all that. I would say the final thought for the listeners is all of this can seem very confusing. There's just such a big tent out there of information and practices and things like that. Understand that you are the power. Everything is within you. You get to discern your preferences, decide which tools you want to use, what you want to explore, what thought leaders you want to listen to. But ultimately, don't allow anybody to take your power away. Understand that everything has the power that you choose to give to it.
Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you for being in this new wave of information that I think so many people are craving. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun being here.